Today we are going to talk for the first time in a long time. I know it's been 4 months since I've made a video. I know that I haven't tweeted in those 4 months. I haven't made any communication at all. A few of you may know that I used to write for Seeking Alpha, and you may have looked at my profile there. And I also haven't made any comments or anything. So I've been completely dark when it comes to the web, at least for the crypto investor brand that I've made for myself. And I know that that's probably a reason that a lot of you think that I've completely betrayed. I was just doing it for the money. I had no interest in anything. I totally understand that. I do. So I do want to make some clarifications here. And then what I want to talk about in this video is this market very briefly. And I'm not going to talk about, should you buy this? Should you buy that? I'm not going to tell you to, blow all your money on this and buy the dip or whatever. I'm not here to say any of that stuff. What I am here to do is I want to provide some of my insights on personal finance for those of you who are in a rough spot right now in terms of what you want to do with crypto, because I know a lot of you have lost a lot of money and you may not know what to do in those circumstances, or in other circumstances, there's nothing that can be done. The damage is already there. And what has to be done at that point is you need to learn how to take this experience and turn it into something positive that you can use in the future to help you invest. Because I will tell you this much, investing does make a massive difference in terms of whether or not you will be successful in the long term. And I really do want to impart that information on everybody through this video, hopefully by the end of it. But real quickly, let me go ahead and get through why I haven't posted, and because I'm sure at least a few of you are curious about that, for the few of you that actually checked this video after all this time. So it's not about the money, because the truth is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but it really doesn't matter anymore. The YouTube channel, at the pace it was going, was over 6 figures a year in terms of income, in terms of revenue. And it basically income because there was almost no cost associated with it, aside from Premiere and a couple of other software that I had to use, and maybe a little bit of information that I had to purchase. But other than that, the costs were basically nothing, and it was seriously over 6 figures a year in terms of income, which is absurd. It's completely absurd when you think about it. I mean, that, in my opinion, just completely blew my mind. I never expected that sort of, I just never expected that sort of business to come from YouTube. I mean, that's just something that I wanted to do and talk about because I was interested about it at the time. But that's really what this is about, is I'm not really interested in crypto anymore for the most part. What I was doing, because it was making so much money, I felt like I had to dedicate myself to the cryptocurrency YouTube channel. And so what I would do is every day I would wake up and I would check the Wall Street Journal and make sure that there was nothing in there about blockchain or, anything about cryptocurrencies. And then I would look at some of the major publications. So that was CoinDesk, that was Cointelegraph, that was CCN. I looked at Bitcoin Magazine. There was a few others that I also looked at. And then after I did all of that, I would start looking at the social stuff. So I would look at Reddit, and I had a bunch of Reddits that I saved. So I had one for probably each of these top altcoins that I would briefly check to see if there was any major news on those. Long story short, I was spending a significant amount of my time reading about cryptocurrencies. At one point, I was starting to get into the really technical things related to cryptocurrencies. And, when I started reading like Andreas Antonopoulos's book, I started realizing that I was not doing it for me. I was just doing it so that I could provide better information on the YouTube channel. And there was really no trading benefit to knowing some of the technical elements behind Bitcoin. I just wanted to sound more informed. And, after some time, I realized that this wasn't exactly what I wanted to be spending my time doing anymore. And if I didn't want to spend my time doing it anymore, then I really didn't provide value as a YouTuber. In terms of why I haven't explained this before, I honestly kept thinking I would come back. And I kept thinking, I'd provide some valuable information, or, I still had a couple of videos that I really wanted to do that I never got around to. Like, I wanted to do a simple video. What is Bitcoin? I just wanted to do something like that. And I never got around to it because it would have required, for me to be happy with it, it would have required some motion graphics, which would have gone into a whole nother project in of itself. And I felt like I had to keep publishing, and I just kept falling behind. So that's what happened with the YouTube channel. And for the record, if you ever see any YouTuber that just kind of quits out of the blue and then they don't make any contact, whether it's through their Twitter or through their YouTube channel, they just kind of go completely dark. And then they all of a sudden come back and they just say that I didn't know what to say or whatever. I used to think that was total BS, and I felt like it was owed to the viewers that some explanation was given. And perhaps that's still true, but for me at least, in my experience, I can say that it's actually harder than you think. It really is. It's hard to say, the channel's done, I'm done, and that's it. It was a great ride. And, it's just very tough to make that announcement, especially when you're not sure if you want to commit to it, and especially when money's involved, right? When there was a lot of money for that YouTube channel to continue running, I didn't necessarily want to say it was gone because I wanted to have the option to come back to it. In the future, I will say pretty much the channel, I think, is done. There is a chance that I do come back for certain videos that I did want to do anyway. Again, some of those videos include just discussing what Bitcoin is, more of like an overview, because I still think people struggle to understand what Bitcoin is and what it's trying to achieve and some of the culture behind it, which I think is interesting. So that was one thing I did want to do. But anyway, that's why I've been gone. I just simply haven't been interested in cryptocurrencies anymore. I am completely drained on it. I understand, again, if people think it's because they've gone down, or if people think that it's because the YouTube channel wasn't making money anymore. But I will tell you that that wasn't the case. Again, I still could have easily made a decent amount of money, maybe not over six figures anymore once the market went down like this. But I am certain I could have made at least 75 a year if I just published on the YouTube channel 5 days a week, which I think is crazy, honestly. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the topic of this video. All right. I wanted to briefly talk about what's happening with this particular market. And this is rough, I'm sure, for a lot of you, because you get put in this circumstance where I know some of you are dealing with very large numbers relative to your net worth in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And so you're feeling a lot of pain right now. I will tell you this much, okay? Your first objective when it comes to investing, if this is your first time investing, is you really want to make sure that whatever you're investing in has income, okay? I think that's probably the number one rule when it comes to investing, is you probably should be investing in things that actually provide income. So that is stocks, that is bonds, that is, REITs or real estate if you wanted to rent it out. These are things that I honestly think are safer bets. You should always have some sort of foundation. All right. I think this is something that anybody would tell you that invest in weird things, like collectors. One of the people that I follow, and again, would never say back when the YouTube channel was, I was supposed to be the authoritative investing guy, but one of the guys I like to follow is Alpha Investments, which is a guy who invests in Magic the Gathering cards. And I actually think he's quite inspirational overall as a person. Some people hate him. Most people hate finance people when they're not from finance, and I understand that. But some of the things that I think he says are kind of valuable insights for people to have, which is you always need to have your fortress of solitude, right? And your fortress of solitude is going to be your investments that are in things that produce income. So stocks, bonds, real estate, and really those are the ones I like to focus on. But you can focus on local businesses if you wanted to, your own business if you wanted to. But the general idea here is for anybody that's new to investing, please consider investing in things that do produce an income first before you start messing around with things like cryptocurrencies that don't have an income. All right. In terms of what you do now that, you've already lost the money, right? So what do you do in this circumstance? Do you just hold until you lose even more, or what's the deal there? So personally, what I'm doing is I am going to hold Bitcoin until one of two circumstances happens. One is it goes up to $11,700, or two, it goes to zero. And the reason I'm doing that is I can afford to do it. Okay, I think most people probably can't afford to make as extreme a decision as that. The reason I'm doing that in particular is because I've watched enough markets, especially Bitcoin in particular, right? If we look at Bitcoin over all of these years, I guess you really can't tell it on the linear graph, but there's been a lot of different circumstances if you go throughout the history of Bitcoin. I forget how many different bubbles it was. I used to know exactly how many, but I think there was 6 different bubbles where it just completely escalated, then popped, completely escalated, then popped. And it just sort of follows that cycle. Now, my gamble here is on whether or not Bitcoin can have another cycle. I don't know if necessarily it's going to go as high as it did back here to 20K. But I do feel, somewhat confident that Bitcoin eventually one day could come back to at least the 11,500 to 700 region. And that's where I'm going to sell. That doesn't necessarily make it a smart decision for you. Again, I can afford to make that binary option decision. All right. I am fairly young overall, and I didn't invest so much that it would kill me. All right. So I have time on my side is the number one factor. And then number two, this is not my entire net worth, right? In fact, I was able to make quite a bit of money off of crypto just because of the fact that I, got in back when Bitcoin was only, I think 35 to 4,000, which was right before I made the YouTube channel. So these are things that when it comes to really talking about how to be a smarter investor, I just recommend for you to take this opportunity to realize that if you are going to go into things like cryptocurrencies, right, or collectibles, at least build your foundation with investments that produce income. The whole reason I got into finance in the first place was because I watched people in my life struggle with finance, and I think that that's going to be a case for a lot of you. Again, you might be struggling yourself right now, and you might also be watching some of your family struggle or whatever. And again, my best advice is to probably do your best to save. I mean, that's the first piece of advice that anybody gives you. And then the second piece of advice is that after you save and start paying down debt, which I guess is another thing I should mention, if you do have high interest rate debt, like credit cards, then you should obviously sell. Okay, you shouldn't be taking a chance on something like Bitcoin when you have high interest rate credit cards, because those are a guaranteed hole in your wallet. Yes, there is a chance Bitcoin bounces right back up and then you're going to feel sad about that. I understand. But what I'm trying to say here is I just want everybody to make smart financial decisions. Part of what was tough for me with the YouTube channel is I realized that a lot of people that were watching my YouTube channel were naive investors. And, I made this video a while back. Where was it? There was a video I made about why I thought, there we go, why Bitcoin is perfect for most first-time investors. So the reason I made this video is because I honestly felt, and I still do to a certain extent, that Bitcoin was a great introduction to investing, because for most people, they see 5 to 15% a year, which, by the way, 15% is on the very high end. They see 15% a year as being low. It's not attractive. And the reason why it's not attractive is because they're working with sums that are less than $10,000. So when you look at, 15% on $1,000, you're talking about $150 a year. That just isn't enough of a difference for most people to be interested. So with most first-time investors, they just don't have enough capital to make traditional options interesting. If you are one of those people that is in the category of having under $10,000 invested in cryptocurrencies, you're probably fairly young. And if that's the circumstance, you might be able to have a little bit more leeway in terms of how patient you can be with Bitcoin. Because here's what I will say is that most of these markets are cyclical, and I don't know if cryptocurrencies are going to bounce back, but I do feel that this is the time that people are in fact going to be fearful. All right, we are starting to get into that mindset where previously any of the stock guys would say how much of a scam Bitcoin was. I think even the subreddits for all the different cryptocurrencies are starting to think that it was all a scam or a Ponzi scheme, or it was in fact a bubble, which I think was confirmed a long time ago. I was saying that for such a long time. You know, it's just something that happens, right? People's behavior changes over time. I do think that generally speaking, you don't want to follow everybody else's behavior. So personally, again, I'm not going to be selling for, again, that binary decision. For me, it's either going to be 11,700 or I'm losing every penny I have invested in crypto. But I can afford to do that. If you have high interest rate, credit card debt, anything over 10%, if you have any debt that's over 10% interest rate, you should consider selling off. If you are someone that doesn't have an emergency fund, which is usually considered 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses, then you should consider selling off at least a little bit so that you can start covering that. At least put $1,000 away. Again, these are sorts of things that I just want, if I'm going to make a last video, I at least want to go out saying that if just try investing and try investing in safer options if you are somebody that can't afford to invest in something like cryptocurrencies or gamble on cryptocurrencies or some sort of collectible or whatever. All right, I guess that's it. I'm sorry that this video was a little bit or completely rambly. I had no script, no planning. Honestly, I just decided to do this video after I saw the market was down this much, and I just felt some sort of obligation to at least say something. The market has the potential to continue to go down. And I just want you to realize that your personal finances are more important than whether or not you make the right decision or not on the time to sell or buy Bitcoin. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know it's not maybe the video that you guys wanted, and I apologize for that. I understand that there's probably going to be a decent amount of dislikes just because, again, I disappeared out of nowhere in an industry that was doing horrible and in a market that was doing horrible. And I know that probably, look, I know how that seems. So I understand either way what your perception is of me. And yeah, I hope that this helped at least a few of you. And thank you for watching.